Story. Am I the hole for firing an employee after his parents died? Uh, I'm the VP of sales at a software company, and one of our sales development reps' parents passed away at the beginning of April. Sadly, they were involved in a car crash and both lost their lives. The sudden tragedy struck our entire office hard, particularly given the circumstances of our employee, a bright, promising 22-year-old who'd been with us for just 10 months. During his short tenure, Marcus had proven himself exceptional. His performance consistently exceeded expectations, leading our team to earmark him for promotion within the next 6 months. The position itself commanded a respectable salary for a recent graduate, approximately $90,000, including commission and base pay, reflecting our high performance standards and expectations. In the immediate aftermath of the accident, our management team granted Marcus a 1 month paid leave of absence. The decision seemed appropriate given the devastating circumstances. Losing both parents simultaneously in such a violent way would devastate anyone, let alone someone barely out of college. We anticipated some adjustment period upon his return, but the reality proved far more challenging than expected. 3 weeks after returning to work, the change in Marcus became impossible to ignore. The formerly enthusiastic go-getter now sat quietly at his desk, barely touching his phone. His cold calling numbers dropped to nearly zero, and his outreach to prospects dwindled to a fraction of his previous volume. The vibrant energy he once brought to the office dissolved into a heavy silence. Our sales targets loomed large. Each day of reduced productivity impacted our quarterly goals, creating a ripple effect across the department. During management meetings, the conversation increasingly centered around Marcus's performance deficit. Various team leads expressed concerns about the timeline for his recovery. The consensus pointed toward months of rehabilitation before he might return to his previous productivity levels. The business implications became clear. In our fast-pacing industry, carrying an underperforming team member for an extended period wasn't feasible. After extensive discussion, the management team reached a unanimous decision. Termination would be the most appropriate course of action. On Friday afternoon, we called Marcus into the conference room. The meeting was brief and direct. We explained our position and delivered the news of his termination. His reaction caught us off guard. Rather than displaying the professionalism we'd come to expect from him, Marcus's face hardened into a mask of anger. He stood abruptly, told us to go fuck ourselves, and stormed out to his desk. Within minutes, he had gathered his belongings and left the building, leaving behind a stunned silence. The unprofessional nature of his exit struck me as particularly inappropriate. Despite the circumstances, maintaining basic workplace decorum seemed a reasonable expectation. Later that evening, while recounting the day's events to my boyfriend, I encountered unexpected pushback. His reaction was immediate and harsh. He labeled our entire management team as heartless, asses, and pricks. His words have lingered, casting a shadow over what we believe to be a necessary business decision. The complex intersection of personal tragedy and professional expectations has created an uncomfortable tension, forcing me to examine all the complicated tension, forcing me to examine all the complicated tension, forcing me to examine all the complicated. Am I the a-hole or not? Comment 1. Yes, the a-hole for firing him without first going through the steps of describing his issues to him and giving him a chance to improve. He's been back for only 2-3 weeks. It's not about having heart. It's about making a dumb business decision for both you and him. It's so much smarter to work with this guy to get him back on track after temporary setback than to push the eject button and have to find and start over with a new person. Dumb. Comment 2, yuck, congrats, yes, If this isn't a shit post, well done. You pulled a poor morning kid's remaining stability and livelihood out from under him 4 weeks after his parents passed away. Hope the rest of the team's moral stays high after this one. Story A, am I the a-hole for saying my babysitting rates are $35 an hour? I'm a software engineer with a full-time job and a side hustle of doing freelance coding work in my own time. I've always been been the type to have a side hustle I put a lot of my free time into. I get really bored sitting idle. My freelance hourly rates are $60 an hour. And at my full time job, my hourly pay works out to about $40 an hour. So that's how I value my time. The market has validated these rates. My clients consistently praise my work and often return for additional projects. My reputation in the freelance community has grown steadily over the past 2 years. Anyway, over Christmas vacation, I was staying at my parents' house. My cousin was also staying over with her 3 young kids from Christmas to New Year's. Their children, ages 4, 6, and 8, were energetic and required constant attention. The house was filled with the chaos that only young children can bring, toys scattered across every surface, constant movement, and the background noise of cartoons competing with children's laughter and occasional tantrums. Yeah, I've been planning on doing some work on my freelance projects when I had free time in the mornings when my family had no plans. Like I wasn't in any rush. I was already ahead of schedule on them all, but I didn't really have anything else to do. It was in a really rural area, and it's like an hour drive to the nearest anything. The isolation meant my options for entertainment were limited to what's available in the house or laptop. Then my cousin and her husband approached me one evening after the kids had gone to bed. They explained they wanted to reconnect with some old friends in the area, people they rarely got to see without children in tow. Their eyes lit up with hope as they described their plan for 3 child-free days, something they hadn't experienced in years. I said I had planned on doing freelance work at the library, and she offered to pay me to babysit. The conversation started pleasantly enough, with genuine smiles and casual discussion. The atmosphere changed rapidly when we got to the details. I said I could if they got close to my freelance rates. She wanted the number, and although my freelance rates were $60, I didn't feel like that was right. It was high, but I didn't want to go too low, honestly. Babysitting 3 kids would be harder for me than the routine coding work I have for my freelance project. I don't know a lot about kids, and I've never babysat for long, and I had a feeling it would be stressful and difficult. The thought of managing 3 energetic children for entire days made my stomach knot with anxiety. So I said $35, which is below what I make hourly at work, and what is the bare minimum I'd value my time for if that time is spent doing difficult work. The words had barely left my mouth when the mood shifted dramatically. My cousin's face flushed red as she went crazy at me, saying that's a ridiculous rate for babysitting, that I was entitled and being selfish, that I'm trying to take advantage of how she didn't have other options. Her voice rose with each accusation, echoing through the quiet house. I say that's way below what I'd be making if I had the time to do my own work, and I'd be putting off my own work to babysit. My voice remained steady, though my hands had started to shake slightly. Her husband then got mad at me, saying that I was a 24-year-old girl, that I'm damn near a child myself, that my time's not worth that much, and it's childish to say that it was. His condescension was palpable as he continued his tirade, and that I was a stupid girl for not knowing that babysitting costs like $15 an hour. When I grew up and have kids of my own, I will see how stupid I was being. The word stupid seemed to hang in the air between us. I was kind of done with being called stupid, so I just told them I hoped they could find someone else. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife as I excused myself and retreated to my temporary bedroom. My mom later came to my room, her disappointment evident in her expression. She thinks that I asked for something offensive, and my cousin and her husband obviously did too. The rest of the holiday was marked by strained conversations and avoided eye contact. Am I the a-hole or not? Comment 1, not the a-hole. If they really wanted to go away for 3 days, they should have arranged a sitter in advance. The husband saying you're a 24-year-old girl, bleh, you're a woman at 24, and your time isn't worth anything is ridiculous, considering you get paid $60 an hour if you don't babysit their kids. The husband sounds like a sexist dick. Plus, you told them you wouldn't babysit, like if they couldn't approach your rate. You probably should have just said no from the start, but you did inform them that it would be expensive. Don't worry about it too much. Comment 2, not the a-hole. 3 kids all day for 3 straight days? Even real babysitters would charge more than $15 for 3 kids. Obviously, they wanted you to do it as a favor and got upset that you treated it as an actual job. Story, am I the a-hole for deleting my friends' wedding photos in front of them? I'm not really a photographer. I'm a dog groomer. I take lots of photos of dogs all day to put on my Facebook and Instagram. It's my thing, if that makes sense. A cut and a photo with every appointment. I very seldom shoot things other than dogs, even if I have a nice setup. My social media presence has grown steadily over the years, with thousands of followers who adore seeing the before and after transformations of their furry friends. The photography setup in my salon includes professional lighting and a backdrop perfect for capturing those post-grooming moments when the dogs look their absolute best. Oh, a friend got married a few days ago and wanting to save money, asked if I'd shoot it for them. I told him it's not really my forte, but he convinced me by saying he didn't care if they were perfect. They were on a shoestring budget, and I agreed to shoot it for $250, which is nothing for a 10-hour event. The morning of the wedding arrived with a suffocating heat wave. The temperature had already climbed to 95 degrees by 9 a.m., and the forecast promised worse to come. Armed with my camera gear and 2 water bottles, I started my day with determined optimism despite the weather. On the day of, I'm driving around following the bride as she goes from appointment to appointment before the ceremony, taking photos along the way. I shoot the ceremony itself, and during the reception, I'm shooting speeches and people mingling, my clothes stuck to my skin as I rush between locations, trying to capture every precious moment despite my growing exhaustion. The venue, an old Veterans Legion hall, became an oven as the day progressed. The ancient building lacked air conditioning, and the temperature inside soared to 110 degrees. Sweat dripped down my back as I maneuvered through the crowds, my camera feeling heavier with each passing hour. I started around 11 a.m. and was due to finish around 7:30 p.m. Around 5 p.m., food is being served, and I was told I could not stop to eat because I need to be productive, or in fact, they didn't save me a spot at any table. The aroma of the catered dinner filled the stifling air as my stomach growled painfully. My water bottles had been empty for hours, and the lack of hydration left me feeling dizzy. The sight of guests enjoying their meals while I stood on increasingly unsteady feet made my vision blur. The camera felt like a lead weight in my hands as I continued shooting, my movements becoming slower and less coordinated. My head pounded from dehydration, and black spots danced at the edges of my vision. I told the groom I needed to take off for 20 men to get something to eat and drink. There's no open bar or anything. I can't even get water, and my 2 water bottles are long empty. His response came swiftly and coldly. I needed to either be photographer or leave without pay. The combination of heat, hunger, and his callous response ignited something in me. With trembling hands and a surge of defiance, I asked if he was sure. His stern nod confirmed his stance. In that moment, my frustration peaked. I deleted all the photos I took in front of him and took off, saying I'm not his photographer anymore. If I was to be paid $250, honestly, at that point, I would have paid $250 just for a glass of cold water and somewhere to sit for 5 minutes. The aftermath has been notably quiet. They went right on their honeymoon and they've all been off of social media, but a lot of people have been posting on their wall asking about photos with 0 responses. The silence speaks volumes about the impact of my decision. Am I the a-hole or not? Comment 1, not the they took you off the guest list for this without mentioning it to you in advance. Well, you went in with the expectation of $250 to take high quality pictures while also being a guest at their event, including a place to sit, eat, and drink. And realistically, you did nothing but follow the groom's suggestion, either continue being a photographer or forfeit your $250. What did the groom think that entailed? He would get all that work for free? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I would seriously reconsider this friendship. Come into not the a-hole. Who refuses to allow someone water or food?